Hello. Good afternoon. Hi, thanks. Let's get started. Couple of things. First of all, many of you have already gotten your grades back on your World Review reflection papers. For those of you who haven't, they're still coming. We'll have them done by Monday. But there's a lot of you, so it's taken a little bit of time. Appreciate your patience with that. But we do have a goal of getting them all back to you by Monday so that you can read over that feedback before you submit your next assignment. I'm going to review that with you in just a few minutes. But I do want to say that all of the people who have been grading these worldview assignments have taken a lot of time and effort to put comments into your work. So if you haven't checked out the comments on your paper, you should do that. And if it says something like you lost points for grammar, or maybe you should consider using the Writing Center for future writing assignments, I'm going to strongly recommend that you do that before you submit your final paper, okay? So again, that's why we spend the time and effort putting those comments into your paper. If you need help knowing how to do that, your Terra Firma leader can probably give you those instructions, but you'll just click back into your paper, and on the sidebar, there's some buttons. If you click on the one that's like a little edit feature, it'll show you, it'll make sure that the comments in your paper are visible for you. So today, we have a quick student presentation on the topic of email etiquette. Some of you do really great with sending good quality emails. Some of you could maybe use a little help in this area, so we thought it would be great for you to hear from a fellow student. You may remember Kyla from a couple of weeks ago. She's one of our peer advisors, and she has just some advice for you on sending quality email to make sure that you're being really clear and going to get good response back from who you're emailing.
Hi guys, like she said, I am Kyla, and as she said, many of you guys probably have sent an email before. I certainly hope so. But I just wanted to give you guys like 10 minutes, some really quick pointers. You may have heard of the elementary questions of who, what, when, where, and why. And so I'm kind of going to take that aspect of what that looks like in email. So the first one, maybe? I don't know. If not, that's okay. I can do it anyway. I'll just set that there. So the first aspect I'm going to look at is the question who. Who exactly are you emailing? For many of you, you're probably emailing your professors, maybe somebody you have to do a project with, or you might be sending out some job applications, especially for the summer at this time. A lot of places are hiring. So first, your tone should reflect the relationship you have with this person. If it's with a friend, you can use all of the fun inside jokes that you have, but if you're addressing your professor, and especially if a professor has a doctorate, you really want to respect that and address them in a proper way. So you don't want to be too casual with somebody in authority and vice versa. You don't want to be too rigid with somebody that may think you are a friend. And you also want to think about who is receiving your message. Sometimes I don't think we really think about cultural barriers that may come across an email. If you're emailing somebody who doesn't understand some general American lingo, they might be offended. Or if you're speaking to somebody from an older generation, they may not also understand all of the hip lingo that you like to use. So just be aware of who you are talking to, because that is really important. And then next is why you are emailing them. So especially at this time of year, you guys have almost finished your first semester as a college student, so be proud of that. But also, it may be some added stress with final projects, some exams that are coming up. So if you are emailing a professor for maybe some last minute thing that you didn't do, you want to come across professional and maybe not as much of a slacker as you might have been, if we're being honest. So according to a marketing survey, the average person only spends about 15 seconds looking over an email, and that's not a lot of time. So you want to make sure that when you are emailing somebody, you keep it to the point, because they're not going to read your book. So save specific questions and specific details about something for meeting with them in person. So if you're emailing them, give them certain times that you can meet if it is relevant for like an in-person conversation, because like I said, they only spend 15 to 20 seconds, and then they most likely won't even open your email again. So you really want to make sure that you just get the point across. And then next is what you are emailing about. This is kind of related to why, but fill out your subject line. If you've ever gotten an advertisement from any business anywhere, they usually have a subject line of why you should even open their email. This is going to, your receiver is going to look at that subject line and determine if it's worth that 15 seconds of reading. And most of the time, they could say no. So fill out your subject line, but when you do fill out your subject line, I'm gonna switch my notes. Don't scream at them. Don't put it in all caps. You're not that important. Your message is not that important. It's just kind of true. Depending on who you're emailing, especially some of your professors, they get a lot of emails, and they don't want to just you don't want to cry wolf of this is really important, and it's really only asking about, did we have class today? Or can I get an extension on that paper? Because when something is actually really, really important and you need them to address an issue quickly, if they just see it on all caps again, and that's how you have always addressed them in your subject line, they're not going to care, and people aren't going to read your email. And then the last little question of when, think about the time, my bad. So where your email comes from. A lot of you probably use your Cornerstone email, which is totally fine, but I would highly suggest you also get an additional professional email outside of Cornerstone, because it will only your Cornerstone email only lasts when you're here, which is a very short time. And I guarantee you're not going to want to use the 7th grade email that you made, because it's probably embarrassing if it was mine, literally mine, horseforever@gmail.com. I don't want an employer to see that email, so I have made an additional email. So think about where it's coming from. That sends a message about who you are as a person, and especially if you're applying for jobs, they're going to take that into consideration about your character, your work ethic, a lot of things, a lot of judgments that you don't even have the chance to change after that. It's a first impression that you don't really think about. So going on to our last point of when you are sending this email. Think about the time. If you're sending it at 3 a.m., people can see that through Gmail or on a phone. You can see when you have received and opened and all of that technology. So sometimes when you see that you've wrote this email at 3 a.m. asking about what this assignment was on, that may come across as a negative of you didn't really care and you were procrastinating, and your professor or employer may not think you're taking things seriously. So it's a little detail that you probably don't think about of I just sent the email, it doesn't really matter. But it's little details like that that people actually pick up on, and that can make or break the situation, especially it just doesn't send a positive, it just doesn't make you look good in a positive light, because it can make you either lazy of procrastinating or that you overwork, and then it's you can't leave this alone until they get back to you, and you're more important than them. You need to set boundaries with some people, and a lot of people do this with email. And so lastly, with that, when you send it, if you send it through your iPhone, this is another one of those features of it. It can say sent from iPhone. I don't know if you can turn that off. If you can, I would highly suggest it, because if it's sent from your iPhone, if it is that important for you to do it on the go, then it is important enough for you to give it a reread. Your email, just because you send it on your iPhone and the keyboard's a little small, it's not an excuse to send a terrible email or just go lackadaisical on your grammar or anything like that. It still matters. It's little details like that that are going to make you just be professional. Before, you guys have sent emails, some of you are really good at this, but it's just little details like that that are going to take your professionalism to the next level. And as you guys continue in your college career, it's going to matter. It's going to matter with jobs and everything else like that. So I just really encourage you. I hope you can find one thing, if anything, that you can maybe try doing instead of maybe I'm going to set a limit of I won't send emails past midnight, because it comes across as overbearing or something like that. And then our last slide is just kind of on this myth of communication with email. Sometimes there's this myth by Albert Merhambin. He's a psychology professor, and he did a lot of research on verbal and nonverbal language. And there's maybe you've heard of it, the 7% rule, that only 7% of what you say, so your actual words, is what matters. Most people look at your body language or your facial expression. But I want to encourage you guys in this, especially with how much technology we have and how much communication happens through that your words still matter. Your tone of voice still carries through even in an email. If you don't believe me, next time you have to sit and write something, try smiling at your computer. You may look like a crazy person and feel really silly doing it, but I guarantee you your word choice and just your overall attitude and tone of voice in your email will be different. So your words still matter. It's not just your body language. And if you're sending an email, like, they're not going to know your body language or anything like that. So, like, this whole myth of communication of that, oh, your words don't matter. Like, they do. You've been told that since you were a little kid, too. Like, your words matter. Like, treat them with respect. Treat the person that's going to be receiving this with respect. Like, present yourself well. So I will hand this back over.
I'd just like to affirm Kyla's point. One time at a previous job, this wasn't a Cornerstone student, a previous job, I got an email from a student whose email was, seriously, Airhead Ashley, okay? I did not have high hopes for her, okay? Like, that was just literally the first thing that popped into my mind was, oh, honey, you should not be writing an email to your academic advisor with that message. So anyways, can we switch over to the other presentation? Perfect. Awesome. This is just a little bit of information for you about your last Terra Firma assignment for the semester. There's more next semester. Don't worry. So your last assignment is another reflection. This is a very personal reflection about how this semester has gone, all right? There's an assignment sheet. It's already loaded onto Moodle in the course resources page, so all of this information is already loaded for you on Moodle. This will be due at the beginning of class next Wednesday. Next Wednesday is our last class period. It's a 2-page assignment, so about 450 to 550 words, typed double-spaced as we've been doing, submitted to turn it in. Please be sure you do use the correct format, okay? DocX or RTF works. Other things don't work with Turnitin, so please make sure you are using the right format there. If you do use other material, you don't have to cite any other material, but if you do use other material, reference works from other people, you must cite it. Otherwise, it's plagiarism, and it will be treated as such. And then again, all of this information is in the course resources folder. There's an assignment sheet that has all of the details, all of the information about the grading rubric, and everything you need to know there. It has a whole list of questions and prompts to get you started thinking about the ways that you have grown this semester. So basically, this paper is a chance for you to kind of reflect back on this semester. Some of you are introspective and you reflect easily and often. Some of you might have to work a little harder at it. That's okay. So we want you to think about the whole experience you've had here so far this year. All right, so not just Terra Firma, but how Terra Firma connects to other things, other areas around campus. You must reference at least 3 Terra Firma topics in your essay. There's a list of the topics on the course resources sheet in case you've forgotten. And again, like I said, there's a bunch of questions there to get you started thinking about some of the things that you might include as growth points or areas of struggle that you've overcome in this semester, okay? Today, for our main topic, we are going to have a panel of your Terra Firma leaders up here to just kind of tell you some about their experience, maybe model for you, get you started thinking about some of the kinds of things that you might want to write about in your essay. And so we'll do that in just a few minutes. I do need to give you a couple of important pieces of information about next week. Next week, we are not going to meet here in the chapel. We're going to meet over in the dining hall for a couple of reasons, but mostly because there's an event taking place in here with an outside group, and so we don't have access to this space next week. So we're going to meet in the dining hall. You will be sitting in tables with your group, and so you need to be there next week instead of here. There is another 5-point in-class assignment that if you are there next week and you participate in the discussion that's going to be happening, you will earn those 5 points. If you are not there, you will not earn the 5 points. No opportunity to make that up. If you're there next week, that's where you'll have access to earning those points through participation in next week's group process, okay? Anyone have questions about that? You might want to tell some of your friends who are very clearly not here today that they may want to show up next week, all right? Also, just one other point about grading. So as of right now, we still have 20-point assignment that last reflection is worth 20 points. And then there's an additional 25 points that are allotted to attendance. So if you've been doing class attendance well, service project attendance well, we are tracking all of that, and those points will be added here at the end of the semester. So if your grade is looking a little slim right now, but you know you've been attending well, just know that you can count on adding those points in as well. So we'll be continuing to work on that throughout the next couple of weeks. Okay? Anyone have burning questions about any of that I just shared? All right. So our panelists, come on up. So just a few questions. I'm just going to hang out over here and ask questions. So just a few questions that you can answer. We've talked about this. Whoever can answer any question, all right? But not everyone has to answer every question. So if you can just share with us, what is one primary area in which you have grown while you're a student at Cornerstone? And if you can, track that back to any experiences specifically in your first year, that would be awesome.
I can start with that. So, areas in which I've grown at Cornerstone, I would say definitely just like when it comes to like putting value in my education. Sorry. So it's an interesting topic to think about, because for me, like, some people think of like putting value in your education as like, all right, I'm paying like however many dollars to come to Cornerstone, and like, what am I getting out of it? And for me, it's like, you get out of it like as much as you put in, and it doesn't always mean like necessarily always in the classroom, or it comes with like everything that you do at Cornerstone. For me, it's been more like having to do with putting in like just being like a Cornerstone student all the time. And that doesn't mean just like doing your homework and like going to class and doing all these things. It's just like being a Cornerstone student is more about like who you are as a person, and like how you're contributing to your growth as a Christian, how you're contributing to your growth as like becoming a member of society, and like as like thinking about like, that's part of Terra Firma. We're trying to think about like big topics like social justice and all these things. And like for me, just like putting value in that by like putting in just a little bit of effort just to like be a Cornerstone student, and just like know that I'm here for like to do this right now, and I'm not always going to be here. So just kind of like to do that and put that emphasis on that. So that's definitely one for me.
Yeah, for me, I'd probably say I've just kind of grown a lot thinking back to my first year. I kind of came into school, and my faith was my parents' faith and my siblings' faith, and I think it's just been eye-opening coming to Cornerstone, even though we're all Christians here. Just kind of like the different beliefs and viewpoints and backgrounds people have, and just people I've met outside of the Christian faith while at college has just been really eye-opening. And I think it's good to just learn more about the people that God has created, and just kind of understand that there are opinions that are different from yours, and kind of taking those opinions and really processing them and figuring out whether you want that to be a part of your own faith or not. But I know I'll still continue to grow after college, but for sure that's a big area that I've grown in here.
An area I think I've grown since freshman year, I've been thinking about, I guess, based off both of you guys' answers. Just like the contentment aspect of things, like coming in freshman year, like I love people and like I love doing things all the time. And in high school, that was fine because like you could get by doing that in your academics. But here, like once you start college, you actually have to like pay attention to when assignments are due. You can't just ask your classmates all the time, like, when is this due? When is this due? Which was my life. And that's annoying. So I kind of had to grow up, I guess, and like just be content being by myself, figuring things out, not being worried about like what other people are doing. I think that that's huge, especially for women, just like having that extra sense of like what's going on all the time, and like just being able to like tune that out and kind of focus on myself and like what God is trying to teach me in that moment, and like not jumping ahead. Like James said, being here, being present, and enjoying your classes and not really taking them for granted, because it's so easy to do that when you're focused on all these outside things and you can miss things that are right in front of you. So I guess that's a way I've grown, is just being content in where I'm at.
All right. Can any of you talk about how service has been part of your experience at Cornerstone, and what you've learned through that process?
So I think service at Cornerstone, I mean, obviously we have like different service learning projects, which have been really meaningful. And I think for each of you thinking about like how you guys have impacted children or different areas in society, and like it's the thing that like has really impacted me, I guess I would say, is like this idea of doing. So a lot of the times, like especially in like, I would say even like in the Christian community, we talk a lot about problems, but we don't actually do anything. So I think there has to be this kind of push to do something. But another way that I've seen like even just experiencing things off of campus has been with a refugee family that we've worked with in the past, and just how meaningful, you know, like having times of just like sitting and having dinner with them, or inviting them to a soccer game, or doing certain things like that that were really just valuable and like eye-opening, because they were from such a different culture. And so like I think being hands-on here is just it's a really beautiful thing, and it's actually really good for us to be challenged and be drawn out of our own comfort, because I think that's something that we struggle sometimes to do, to get out of our comfort zone. So.
Yeah, service is a big one for me in my time at Cornerstone. Just thinking about it, like, first of all, just like biblically, I know, like, I think it's Mark 10. In Mark 10, it says, like, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. And so for, like, us as Christians, like, trying to be like Christ, like, because Christians means, like, little Christs, and that's what our goal is, like, in this life. Just for me, like, trying to be a servant has been a big part. Definitely, I like how Cornerstone puts emphasis on it with the service projects and all this, but for me, it's a more personal example. Just like for me, when it comes to, like, I'm on the men's soccer team here, and for me, when it comes to service, a lot of it has to do with that, because I spend most of my time, well, I don't know, I guess like 50% of my time probably even, just doing stuff with the team and doing stuff with just serving them, whether it's like on the field, just giving everything, or off the field, like doing things like with our coaches that he needs us to do, or like helping out my teammates, like talking with them, like, hey, are you doing well with school? And for me, it's like, yeah, and like a community can only be as good as like the servant leadership that is going into that. And for me, like, that's a really big thing. And I think as a community of Christian believers, and in our soccer team as a Christian soccer players, like, I want to be there to serve my teammates anyway, and in any community. I think it's just taught me that, like, you can't be a beneficial part of a team or a community in any way without just like that service aspect. And I mean, I definitely have a long way to go before I feel like I can be more beneficial for sure, and you can always serve better, but that's just what I'm going for, and I think I've learned a lot through that.
Can any of you speak to how you've developed your strengths while you've been at Cornerstone? And specifically, are there any like very deliberate things that you've done to practice growing or investing in your strengths?
My main strengths are positivity, empathy, and developer. So very relational things. And I think doing Terra Firma is a big part of that, as I can offer my time and just kind of listen and be there for people, which I enjoy. And I also kind of feel like that has been kind of part of my service. I was kind of just thinking about that. I would challenge you guys to think about service outside of just your service learning. but just in being there for people. A lot of times I've been in the quorum doing homework, trying to get stuff done, and people want to have conversation, or like they're upset about something, or they need advice, and I've just kind of like learned to teach myself that probably this person's problem or this relationship I have with this person, or just kind of like maybe God has something to say through me might be more important than what I'm doing in the moment. And I think that's the way I've developed my strength of really putting people first and caring about their needs before my own. And it's just something like really actionable that you could do like every day for someone, especially on a college campus. There's people all around you. And especially at Cornerstone, I think putting those people first is really important.
I think for me, when I think about like things that I've developed, honestly, I think about like going to like the well, and so like I go there pretty consistently, so like every Wednesday, and a lot of the struggles and a lot of the roots of just like my sin and a lot of things that like I often feel like I'm just like the worst person, you know, like I don't feel like I'm adequate like compared to like certain students, and I think just really finding those things within myself, and like those are weaknesses that I have, but also like God like puts people in front of me to allow me to like work on those things, and like he strengthens me through those things, which is really like such a valuable thing. Like things that I thought were just really terrible about me, or like I didn't feel like I was good enough. So I come from a very like not task oriented kind of home or environment. So like the idea of like getting things done and on time has always been a struggle for me. But like relationship wise, like I love hanging out. Like I'm chill. Like if you know me, like I'll hang out with you, and like I don't really care too much about like the task, you know? And maybe for some of you guys that's actually really easy, like getting the task done, and then like the relationship part is more difficult. But in a lot of ways, like I've learned to like develop the task-oriented side of myself, and like have put structure in my life to now do those things well. Because I think there's a balance there that needs to be talked about. Because I think certain students really struggle with always feeling like they have to have a 4.0 and perform at this campus, or like have the best grades because that's what's been expected of them all their lives, which is all good. Like I think getting great grades is awesome. And I applaud you guys, but I think there's an ability to recognize that sometimes there's other important things than just the performance part of thing, you know? So I'm still learning and I'm growing with you guys, and so, yeah, just want you guys to know that.
I was just going to say, this is the shorter thing. Two of my strengths are positivity and harmony, and something I decided to do a while back, I don't even know when, is if I know someone's name, even if I've never met them before, I just say hi to them and use their name. And it can be really awkward sometimes, but honestly, I think people kind of like it sometimes, and this is a small enough campus to where they probably know your name too. They're just too shy to say it. So if you're ever like crossing paths with people, like just say hi, just smile, say their name. It doesn't really matter. It shows God's love through you. So just wanted to do that little shout out.
That is a great specific task about strengths development. I like it. Okay, can you talk about any outside of class opportunities you have taken advantage of to maximize your educational experience? So obviously you're all here to earn a degree, but what kinds of things have you done, maybe college fairs or experiences that you're also using kind of as maybe resume building kinds of things that you can give advice about as far as participation and kind of building that whole Cornerstone experience?
I can go. I've done Enactus since my first semester at college, and that has been an awesome experience, getting real-world experience. Just emailing people, like we talked about, outside of college is like something that, outside of school is something I never really did before, but like actually getting experience talking to professionals and getting advice in that way. It's just really helpful. I also get a lot of public speaking skills there, and it's kind of scary, or maybe you might think, like, why would I add on extra, like, more things to do on top of my schoolwork? But it is just so worth it to really get that experience.
As an athlete, you don't see like a ton of, I started that out wrong. You don't see a ton of athletes like doing chapel, and that was something that God kind of put on my heart when I first came to Cornerstone, because I did it previously, and then when I came here, I was like, wow, like that's cool to me. Like I want to do that, and so I guess that's a way I've taken advantage of like out of class opportunities, just like kind of diving into something else, like meeting new friends and new people that aren't really in like your world necessarily, or like what the world you're supposed to be in here at Cornerstone is. So yeah, that was something that I did out of class as an opportunity.
Yeah, I just want to add on, like, just like we talked about at the beginning of the semester, like go trips, and then also just like study abroad opportunities. Like, I think if you're gonna go to CU, like being a part of teams that go to like other countries or other cities, and like, I guess there's just so much to learn from that, and I would encourage you guys to take advantage of that, because I went to Zambia with Chip and a team, and I went to Ecuador for a Spanish class, and like there's so much to learn, and CU offers like great opportunities for that. So I would just encourage you guys to do that, because I feel like even if it is like a study abroad class, it's still like an incredible opportunity, because you'll learn way more even if it's only 2 weeks probably than you will in a whole semester. It's just true. So it's just an awesome opportunity.
And our last question, a couple of you have already hit on a few of these, and that's okay. But if you're willing to, or have experiences to share about growing through struggle that you would want to share, we'd love to hear your reflection on that as well.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I'm gonna just be real, like, so like I failed like a ton of classes, like I don't know, like 2 or 3 of them, and like I got like bad grades, and so like it was a struggle to like dig myself out of that hole, and like knowing like my GPA was like at risk, like I almost got kicked out of the school for like academic purposes, and it was until like I started like really placing structure in my like life, and some of those times were just the loneliest times that I could just remember, because like for so much of my life I was ingrained, and like I was taught that once you get to college, that it's like adult world, you know. Like for me, that was just such a big step of thinking like I couldn't ask for help because I didn't want to disturb a professor. I didn't want to disturb someone with a doctorate, you know. Like these people are so much higher than I am, and so like the thought of even like approaching a professor was like terrifying. The idea of like, you know, like, so I'm a first generation student, like my parents never went to college, so like even the thought of like trying to ask for help around me, like my family system just wasn't prepared. Like they're learning college just as I'm learning it, you know. And so like having all these like different little challenges and like struggles as far as just trying to think through like, how do I do this? Like I don't know how to do this. I don't know what this looks like. I don't know what this is like. And for me, I was just like, I'm the first one, like who do I like talk to about this, you know? And I just came in knowing, like, I remember just guidance counselors like feeding this into me, like as I was a senior, junior in high school, like always just telling us like no one's here to babysit you, no one really cares, like no one cares. And this idea in high school that was just like fed in my mind that just kind of like made me scared of college, you know? And so when I got here and I really needed help and I needed a support system, I really didn't want it, because I was like, well, no one's gonna care, no one's gonna want to deal with me, you know. They have like a ton of students here, there's like 2,000 kids, so like why would they care about Alexis, you know? And it was until I like really like took those barriers down that I really like was able to excel and really do well, and it took a lot of just like up and down journey. But yeah, like even through that, just like yeah, I've been super just grateful for the like people that have just like been patient with me and like loved me well through that, because it's been really just like meaningful for me.
I can share just one. I would say definitely, just it's interesting. Claire touched on it a little bit, but just being at Cornerstone and just like being in an environment that we label as like Christian is really difficult. I struggle just because I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this, but when it comes to like your personal relationship with God, I feel like generally better about my life if I'm like getting into God's word and like spending time in prayer. And then when I don't do those things, then I feel like all of a sudden my life like crumbles. And it's weird because like I can't explain it, but like it just like happens. Like it's in cycles. And I think some of you guys are freshmen, some of you guys are transfers, but like I think you'll all go through like cycles in college that like of just like, oh, I feel great right now. Like just my grades are awesome. Like I don't feel like stressed about anything. Then times where you just feel like everything's like closing and it's like, how am I going to get through this week? And so I've definitely had those times where I felt that way and I've just been like, you know, like kind of depressed and just feeling like, like it's just nothing's good right now. And so I would just encourage you guys in those times just to like seek out the only one that can actually like help you with those things. And that's going to be like, it's going to be through prayer and it's going to be through God's word because God speaks to us through his word. And so I just encourage you guys not to like forget about that even when everything feels terrible, that like God can speak to you because he speaks to you through other people. He speaks to you especially in his word. So I just encourage you guys because that's what's got me through, and that's what I think is going to keep getting me through college and the rest of my life. So that's just what I want to encourage you guys with for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that, which is awesome. I was trying to think about like a specific struggle. I was looking at this question, and I couldn't really come up with one. But all I could think about is that it seemed like every semester, like it had something that was hard that I was going through, whether it was like roommate stuff or maybe one specific class. Right now, it's trying to find an internship for spring. There is just always something that is gonna like kind of like crush you a little bit or make you feel sad or that you can focus on and you can worry about it. But God has just been really laying it on my heart that there will always be something. And it is a sin to worry about it and not just give it up to him. And you might have to do it every day or every hour, every minute that you think about that thing that's stressing you out. But we're going to live a lot more of a joyful life, just more of a life at peace if you give that struggle to him immediately. And yeah, something that I feel like you have to do the rest of your life throughout college, and just not dwell on those bad things because they will be there. There is no promise that our life is going to be good after we become Christians, that everything will be perfect. And it's been hard. It's been a struggle. And right now I do have to give that up to God, that I don't know where I'm going to be working next semester, but I know he has a plan. And whatever you feel like your struggle is right now, there is a plan for that.
Any last pieces of advice you'd want to add on? You don't have to if there's nothing. All right, cool. Well, please thank your leaders here for their good advice. All right, we've got a good 20 minutes to break up into small groups. Leaders, I have a copy of the assignment sheet here, so please, in your discussions today, kind of get started thinking through these questions that are prompts for the assignment. Maybe go through that assignment sheet a little, make sure questions are cleared up in your groups there. And again, don't forget, next Wednesday over in the dining hall instead of in here. Have a good day.